Alright y'all, so if you followed the channel, you know that last season I did do a Divine Combo Card tier list, and I got a lot of comments of people asking me to do another one of these since there have been some changes recently to a bunch of the different Divine Combo Cards, and the meta has kind of shifted since the last time I did this, so I think it's a good enough time to go ahead and look at this again. Now, this isn't necessarily a best builds for every single character type of video. Other creators have done that, such as Abe. Actually, we'll leave that in the comment section or in the description, just his video on like best divine combo cards for each character. But this is still going to be a general guidance on how each of these divine combo cards work, why you may want to pick them in certain situations, who you want to pick them for, just so that you guys in the future could make your own builds for characters. Whilst I think many characters will end up using a very set amount of cards, I think there's situations where you may even want to switch things up or kind of change things, and this is here to help you make those decisions yourself, basically. So hopefully this does help you guys. Now, again, we're going to just go down the line as it is shown in the kind of tier list here, but let's go ahead and hop over to in-game. So firstly, we're going to be talking about Lightning Swift. So Lightning Swift is a card that kind of does suck for the most part. In my opinion, I think the boost isn't really too drastic. It can be activated every 6 seconds after you use a vanish step. I'm not necessarily a fan of you also having to vanish in order to use it. I think this could be good in niche scenarios, either early game potentially or late game. Now, the thing about me is I feel like if you're going to run a damage card, I feel like Snowball is just going to be better for you 9 out of 10 times in terms of damage cards, like in the first slot. I just don't really see you picking Lightning Swift over Snowball, especially because you want to get now 8 stacks of Snowball. Before, you know, getting 5 stacks I think was a lot easier. You could, I think some people would think, oh, because now you need 8 stacks of Snowball, which again, they changed that. You used to only need 5 stacks of the super snowball effect. Now you need 8 total, and if you KO'd, you lose everything. But the thing is, since you have to build it up over a long, like, term, how to explain it? You have to build it up more so throughout the fight, rather than just winning 1 or 2 interactions at best. So this actually, you know, incentivizes you from keeping it long term. What I've seen some people do is, okay, let's say you're 10 minutes into a fight and maybe both teams are just like at the end, you have 2-2 in bosses and you're just kind of rushing towers. If you die and you come back and you're not 100% sure if you're going to be able to get snowball stacks when you make a push, a character like maybe even Oob or a character, you know, that just does a massive energy attack can actually go ahead and switch over to this. But again, it is a very niche scenario. I don't think it's going to be a super common thing to happen, but I do want to bring that up. So with this in mind, I feel like Lightning Step, probably a B tier card at best. I think it has some utility to it, but that's really the best I would give it. I think Snowball will be an S tier card. I still think that Snowball is really good. I just think that when it comes to Snowball now, it just takes more, I think, general skill and making safe plays rather than just kind of throwing yourself into a fight and just like doing whatever. You need to calculate the risk a little bit more. I don't think it's like a massive thing, but I think it does benefit you from making smart plays. The more smarter plays you make, the more you outsmart your opponents, the more snowball stacks you will gain over the course of the battle and can allow you to keep that advantage. At the same time, if you make a smart play to kind of counter your opponent, you get rid of all their snowball stacks. Now I think it feels a lot easier for you to make a comeback compared to, oh, you know, you can make one smart play, but if the enemy just kind of counters back next time, then it's like they could get 3 snowball stacks, like over 50% of the power, like in one fight compared to how it is now. So I think it is just a good change in general. But that's me personally. I still do think that Snowball is a good card. Now, next we can go ahead and talk about Buildup. This is another card that received a pretty massive change recently. Now, you need 5 KOs or assists on enemy NPCs, and you will increase your defenses up to 10 times. So it used to be 3 KOs or assists on enemy NPCs up to 15 times. So if you just do the math, Every stack now is 5 KOs or assists. You need to kill 50 mobs throughout an entire fight in comparison to killing 45 mobs throughout an entire fight. We also did see when it comes to the actual buff that it does provide. I believe it is overall a lower buff if I'm not mistaken. Again, I'm going to go ahead and actually bring up the patch notes just so that I remember the exact numbers at the top of my head, just to kind of leave that to you guys. But yeah, if we take a look here, I can just switch over right now. We can see here, build up, all defense gain increased to 22. So 22 with 10 stacks is 220, whilst 15 with 15 stacks is 225. So overall, it is a slight nerf to build up. However, I don't think it really does much in terms of like a nerf, because you only need 5 extra farm throughout the fight. It is barely a decrease in how much defense you obtain regardless. And I don't know, I just feel like, you know, especially on characters that are technical characters who do end up using build up, let's say, I don't know, a character like Goku Black, for example. Like, again, we could look at all these technical characters. In fact, I think it'll be better for me to switch in game to show you guys this, just because the website is a little bit outdated. Hopefully they do update the website more often, but again, we can go ahead and take a look at some of these technical characters that, you know, end up using build up. And the reason why it is important for me to point this out is because this technical helper just gives you build up stacks for free. Any farm that's within the zone does basically give you an assist, because you're constantly giving your allies movement speed up, which does of course count as you giving an assist, basically like a buff. Since you're buffing your allies, you're assisting them, and that's kind of how the system works, right? So again, a character like Goku Black, he gets defense up in his kit, so that's really good for him. A character like Kid Buu, who gains extra HP. A character, you know, like Gotenks even, I think could end up using it. Bappu, I believe, ends up using it in most situations. Kid Gohan also gives himself energy up. 17 gives a lot of extra HP. Like, you're seeing like a bunch of these technical characters do just end up using build up. And it's so easy to get build up on technical characters that I just think it's just honestly like such an easy thing. But also, multiple of these tanks end up using build up, but not just all the tanks. Like, the only tank that doesn't necessarily use it is Baby and maybe Cooler. I personally use it on Cooler still, because he's already just not tanky enough as is for a tank in my opinion. There's some builds where I see like Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, like on Skill 2 boost and stuff like that, you could actually go Snowball, but it's very niche scenarios, and that depends on like how good you are on the character. Like, really good 4 Vegetas can end up using Snowball, for example, but it's very just like situational, right? Build up generally is just a good card, and I think it's usable on many characters. It's basically just the Snowball for tankiness. I feel like when we consider the difference in how many characters use Snowball versus how many characters use build up, I think more characters actually do end up using build up. So I mean, it's not really in order, but I think build up is still pretty good, honestly. Like, I just feel like most characters who end up using build up, it's not like they're not using it. Now, this card Too Easy is really hard to rank. I think that Too Easy has some very niche uses. It's just not, again, super common that you're going to end up using it. The only time you end up using Too Easy is with Bardock. Because Bardock, as a character, in my opinion, I think he's the best tank. I think it's between him and Bulma. But with the Dende Helper giving you a lot of shield restoration, you just kind of go to your enemy God of Destruction tower and just spam your skills and kind of chip the tower down. Because even if you're interrupted, you'll still do tower damage. And they've changed that recently where you do a lot more damage. Because you're doing that all game, and Bardock already just has pretty terrible just like farming. He never really went crazy with build up stacks in certain games anyways. You can actually just go Too Easy. And it does work really well for this guy, because it just will give him extra HP, which will kind of allow him to, you know, restore his shield a little easier. It'll allow him to chip more. It actually is pretty like comp on Bardock right now. So because of that, I'm actually considering putting Too Easy in A tier because I feel like you're gonna see it more often used than not. It's just the effect itself is kind of like a B tier card. It's just that it only really works in Bardock. Like you put it on Bardock, man, because he's like, I think he's probably the worst tank in terms of like farming ability. Like his farming ability is really just mediocre, but he's so tanky in his kit anyways. It's not like he necessarily even needs to build up stacks, especially with Dende. I mean, generally, will it be better? Probably, but I feel like it's just gonna be easier for you to use Too Easy. Um, I personally use Too Easy on Bardock as a card. I think it's kind of mediocre. Outside of that, like you would only get Too Easy if like, man, oh, I'm like, it's just, I just don't see it because how you used to use Too Easy is games used to be, I think, a lot shorter. So getting an advantage super early on in a game will just like massively help you. So if you think you could capitalize on a kill, like early game back in the day, I say back in the day, God, but it was like almost a year ago at this point. And you're about to die, but you know you can kill the enemy. You switch to Too Easy, you get the extra HP, you kill them, then you take all the farm in the lane, and then you get like a level advantage already, and then that just kind of goes into boss, and it, you know, you guys get the point, right? But now I feel like there's so much farm available now that it's a lot easier to kind of make a comeback, even if you die early on. It's not like that big of a deal, especially a bottom lane, especially a bottom lane. So I don't know. I think this is fine, honestly. Like, I think, you know, you just don't grab it. But I do think that the effect could be just a bit better. They just need to nerf Dende. Like, nerf Dende and then buff this a little bit. And I think that'd be fine. Because otherwise, like, you're just not really going to use this card. This card is only usable because of Dende. It's kind of like a Dende special thing. Does that make sense? On Bardock. Now, Strategic Escape. This card, I feel like, is a pretty decent. The issue with this card is it's just kind of power crept, I guess you could say. The only time you'll really use Strategic Escape is if you are using a, like, okay, I think there's two options for these blue cards. Obviously, Strategic Escape, and then we'll talk about other Decoy. But if you need a character that will run a solid barrier, then you actually would end up going Strategic Escape. It just kind of depends. I do think it's a good card though. Like, I feel like it does its intended use pretty well. I'm gonna go ahead and put it, I don't know, maybe we do this. I'll think about it a little more. Because, you know, Too Easy just, it's meta, it's comp and Bardock. That's really it. So I feel like I have to put it A just because it's comp and Bardock, bro. At least in my opinion. Now Strategic Escape just does its job. Right? You turn your back to the enemy, you get a movement speed boost temporarily. It's good. Like it's fine. It's nothing crazy, right? But it's fine. Geekction High. I think nothing has changed about this card either. The thing about this card is if you are gonna get a very successful rat off, like let's say you see the entire enemy team is jumping someone in the middle of the lane and then you're at the God of Destruction Tower, or they're all on boss and then they're all distracted, especially if there's like the what's the divine draw specifically called again? It's called my brain can't work. Spirited Away, right? That one where you actually have like the clouds around them. I think that is where you will end up using this divine combo card. You don't really choose at the beginning of matches, but it is such powerful, like it's so powerful in effect that I think it just goes in E tier. Like the effect itself is really good because you just get half your cooldown back, and the most important thing in this game is doing tower damage, for sure. Like at this point, but the issue is, I say at this point, but like it's kind of always been tower damage. The issue is that you have to land the max like burst, like, well, not a max Gekishin burst, but like you have to land the full Gekishin burst, right? You can't get interrupted. If you get interrupted, the effect doesn't work. But the effect is so good that if you successfully get it off, man, you just do so much tower damage. It's just so free, right? The only thing is that since it is the first card, if you're on a character like a DPS or a technical or whoever, like, and you switch to it, you will be getting rid of all the stacks of these if you have any. But like, if you like lost those and you're just going into chip tower and you get a rat off, then that's good, you know. That's it. Now, I think pretty easily we can go ahead and put these two cards up here. Giant Slayer and Prepare to Die are just good cards. They haven't been changed pretty much. I mean, they got Prepare to Die got buffed last season. You use these cards depending on, again, if you're facing certain enemies. Like, for example, I think Giant Slayer is really good against enemies with a lot of HP, or if you have less HP than an enemy. Like, enemies just, how to explain it? Like, if you're going against enemies that will have a lot of HP, like, let's say a higher HP character that's DPS is like Topo, for example, I think that could be good. You know, this is just good if you're going to be in prolonged fights as well. Like, it's situational when you end up using Prepare to Die or Giant Slayer. Just honestly, like, if we take a look at the effects, you boost damage sliding the enemy hero until the end of confrontation. This activates when an attack hits enemy hero with 50% or less HP. So this is really good. This is really good. I think burst damage characters end up using Giant Slayer a little better as well compared to Prepare to Die characters. Like, for example, I feel like characters that are doing like a lot of melee damage, or, you know, like Topo even, who's doing a lot of damage over time, would end up using Prepare to Die a lot easier, like characters that prolong fights, compared to Kefla, who does a lot of burst damage. She jumps in, she bursts you down, hitting an enemy hero with 80% or more HP, you just like do a huge melt to their HP. God Goku, another character, like his skill 1 just like melts you, his skill 2 melts you. Like, I think those descriptions kind of give you guys an understanding. While as a character like Broly doesn't necessarily do like one massive burst damage attack, or Topo, they more so kind of like melt you down a little bit over the fight. So yeah. Now we have Steel Skin and Solid Barrier. I feel like these two again are cards that are good situationally as well. I think that, where would I rank these two cards specifically? Again, this one is also a little tough here. Maybe I do end up doing this, and then we can put these two here, is what I'm thinking here. You use these cards, I think, not nearly as much as a card like Defense Step or Build Up. If you need like full defense, or you're going Snowball and you just need a little bit of extra defensive coverage, you can actually end up using Solid Barrier. But Solid Barrier is a card that you only really use for counter picks. Like, let's say you're going against a Piccolo, for example. A Piccolo who's just gonna snipe you from like 5 million away, 5 million years away. Like, Special Beam Cannon, for example, or his Light Grenade, or even a burst damage like Kale, Kefla, Godku. Like, if you're especially like a lower HP character like Kale, for example, and you're just like worried about getting jumped on, Super Saiyan 3 Goku's another character who could just jump on you. Barrier, I think, is a good kind of counter pick, but that's kind of the only time you will end up using Barrier. Barrier is not like a card you go out of your way to use unless you do really think you need the help to prevent yourself from getting jumped. But again, like a character like Trunks, for example, I think can end up using Barrier if you go Snowball Barrier. Otherwise, you know, I think a lot of characters end up going just Snowball Giant Slayer, Snowball, or Build Up Giant Slayer, Build Up Prepare to Die. So yeah, that's kind of really it there. I feel like, yeah, because like Kefla, for example, just ends up going Snowball, Giant Slayer, because you get such a huge advantage damage-wise. And I just think one issue with this game right now is that it's so easy to prevent yourself from getting jumped with these ranged characters. Kefla has so much heist, like, she has so much movability, for example. It's actually just insane. Again, take a look at the best DPS characters. God Goku sits from 5 billion miles away and shoots you down. Kefla can just melt you down from also light years away. Has extremely high movement speed. But then the other good characters, you know, like let's say Super Vegito, Team Fighter, you run build up. This guy, Team Fighter, you run build up. This guy, Team Fighter, you run build up. But then you likely just run a damage card in the second card because it's just going to be generally more consistent from you defensively than running barrier. Now, that doesn't mean you can't run barrier, but you know, it just really depends. Super Saiyan 3 Goku is another character where it's like you can run barrier, but you're also likely just better off running defense step still, which we'll talk about later. But defense step is just basically an on-command barrier. That's pretty much what it is. Now, Steel Skin is used on certain characters or certain matchups, more so. Like, again, if you're going to be in a prolonged fight, like, let's say if you know you're not going against a lot of burst damage characters, like, I don't know, we can go ahead and bring up the list again, but let's go ahead and look at just a bunch of damage characters that aren't necessarily going to be doing a lot of burst. I feel like Vegito is a character that doesn't necessarily do a lot of burst damage. Topo, kind of. Broly, but I would only really use Steel Skin still on characters that have a lot of innate defenses. For example, even like God Topo, like I see a build of God Topo people run is a build up Steel Skin Pursuer, but if you just know you're not going to get burst damaged, you can end up using Steel Skin. It's just that at the same time, if you know you're not worried about burst damage on a DPS, you're likely just going to run Giant Slayer. It's really only tanks that will end up using Steel Skin like that because their job is to tank. I think that's just pretty straightforward. Their job is to tank. So, character like Bardock, I think I use Steel Skin pretty much nearly every single time. Unless I'm going against like a Piccolo, then I'll go Barrier. Vegeta, Sal, I think Cooler, Baby, I don't actually use it at all pretty much though. But like every tech, basically, besides like Bulma, I think she probably ends up using the next card I'll talk about. It depends. But yeah, that's kind of it when it comes to Steel Skin and Solid Barrier. Next we have, I realize this video is like 20 minutes long. I can speed it up a little bit. Next we have Art of Decoy. Art of Decoy is basically what I was talking about earlier. Was like it's kind of just like better strategic escape. Like I feel like if you're gonna be hitting towers a lot and like doing a lot of ratting, besides Bardock, I think a lot of these, or just tanks in general because they have Dende, I think a lot of these characters like technicals end up using Art of Decoy. Like on Goku Black, I use Art of Decoy a lot. I think in old Gohan, I think I go build up Art of Decoy. Art of Decoy is just a good card because there's so much obstruction now. So what happens is you get a really considerable boost to your movement speed, but you also get your vanishing step back. So they did actually buff this recently because you did not actually used to get your full vanishing step back. Wonder if I could find this here. It was buffed recently. I can't really find it in these specific patch notes, but it's pretty good card. I actually really like Art of Decoy. I feel like it's just like a meta pick on most characters. Yeah, pretty much. This card, Epic Hunter. I feel like it's situationally good. I mean, this is tough. Maybe I do this. Like, I'm just trying to figure out like how to kind of rank these here. Yeah, I think this looks a lot better. Like, I think, again, the thing about like a Divine Combo card tier list is it kind of just depends. Like, some characters will utilize a card better than others. Epic Hunter, though, I think it is really good for boss secures, right? I mean, it gives you, I think it's like a 40% damage increase, if I'm not mistaken, which is insane, the damage increase you get with this. It is a very, very useful, like, buff to bosses under 50% HP. It can be really good for Jacko secure, in fact, which is really funny because Jacko's on the card, but it's also good for early game. I think God Goo. I can't even talk. God Goku uses this card very well, like just a boss secure character in general. Most of the time when I end up using Epic Hunter, I feel like is the third boss or just mostly Jacko, really. Like you can just pick Epic Hunter, but it just kind of becomes a little bit obvious if you do. like they'll know you're going for boss, and unless you're a God Goku, it's like they'll just be able to jump you. Um, but like if you win a team fight and then you're worried about the boss being stolen potentially, like during that time, you could just switch to Epic Hunter, and you just deal so much extra just damage. It really helps out. So I think it's a good card. Just generally, like you just need to know when you pick it, which is just really when you're not 100% certain you can secure a boss without this damage boost. I think it's better to be safe than sorry, especially because a boss like Jacko gives you so much value. Like just skill damage is so stupid. But even Yakon, like if you know, Yakon is not that hard to melt. So if you're like Kefla, for example, you can melt Yakon pretty easily. But if you're not confident, again, or you, let's say you have no snowball stacks or something, just switch to Epic Hunter, then you likely will do enough damage as Kefla to just be able to switch back later. If not, just you have enough card energy in general if you've been winning the fight. But that's kind of it. I do like this card. I think it's good. For what it uses. Wicked Warrior is pretty useless. I feel like it's probably the worst card. Either that or Guardian Angel. I just don't like it. These three cards, like at least even this card, I see a use for it. I just don't see where you would use Wicked Warrior. Even on characters who do a lot of rush attacks. I think a lot of them are just better off using Pursuer. Pursuer is like a decent card, honestly. I just feel like in general they're just not really crazy cards. Like I don't see why you would pick these two cards over some of these other ones. Again, this is also not a good card, but like I don't know. I guess Pursuer maybe can go here. At least like Pursuer is not like as bad as these two. Pursuer does give you a really useful movement speed boost. Again, you land attacks enemy heroes with 2 skills within 2 seconds. You do get a speed boost for 7.5 seconds towards targets, and you do additional energy damage as well. Like again, Topo uses this card for example, and I feel like Topo is a pretty nice meta pick. It's not bad. It's not bad. You know, I've seen Calypso's use this actually, so that's cool. But yeah, no, I like this card. It just isn't like I think as powerful as these two really. I think the thing about like these last cards is that these two are the ones you're using most of the time. Guardian Angel sucks as well. It just doesn't reduce enough damage for you. It doesn't feel like it's super effective in reducing your allies' damage. Like the only time this card was useful was like skill 2 cooldown Majin Buu, but that time has since passed, and that was the only character it would be used one. This card just, you don't see, no one uses this card. Like, sorry. Like, everyone's, if you need a defensive card for your team, just have everyone take defense step. It is what it is. Like, defense step is still really good. I don't think it's as, like, it's not above the game anymore because they increased the cooldown. But, have I switched over here? Oh, yeah. Actually, I wasn't even looking at the screen properly, but, I was showing this right here. But again, defense step having 75% reduction for 4 seconds. Well, okay. For the first 2 seconds, you have 75% reduction. And I believe it goes down to 50 and then lower for the last 2 seconds. It can only be used every 12 seconds now compared to before. I think it was able to be used every 6 seconds or so. 4 to 6 seconds, right? But either way, it is what it is now at 12 seconds. Which is longer than your cooldown vanish for your vanish step is now. I don't really think it's that big of a deal though. I think that it is a good change. Like it just balances the card a little bit more. And I still think it's very usable. I feel like people were acting like, oh man, defense step was dead at the beginning of the season, but still very, very valuable. Now, next we have Backstab. I think just Backstab really depends on the character. There's not that many characters who end up using Backstab, but a few characters I think can end up using Backstab. Trunks is a good character. I think, you know, you just hide in bushes with him, use your skill 2 and kind of jump on the enemy. That works out. Krillin is a character that actually I saw a lot of people end up using Backstab on him because of not only just his mines, like since you're not necessarily in vision. Because again, how Backstab works is, again, if you're undetected by enemies and then you land a skill, within 3 seconds of being discovered, right? Like, again, you get a greatly reduced cooldown time. So if you're kind of just like hiding around a tower and waiting for someone to kind of pop up and they hit all the mines, that can actually end up activating a backstab, which is good for you. But yeah, you guys kind of get the idea behind that. Super Saiyan 3 Goku's, I think you used to use backstab in this guy, but I think you kind of end up using defense step now. I mean, you kind of always use defense step, to be fair, when it got buffed, like after that, but this guy is kind of a character that can end up using backstab. But yeah, it kind of depends. Super Saiyan Goku sort of uses backstab as well. Backstab did get nerfed, like what, a season or two ago, so it's not as effective on some of these characters as it used to be either. So then Limit Breaking Jump is just good for characters who just have low HP. I think KO uses this pretty well. Piccolo uses this. You could end up using this on, funny enough, 4Gita. I see some 4Gita players use, again, Snowball, Build Up, Limit Breaking Jump, or Snowball, Build Up. I'm stupid. Snowball, Barrier, Limit Breaking Jump. Like, that's not a bad combination of cards either. For this, and I'll do this, and then I feel like this card is still up here as well. This is not really ordered within here. This is kind of whatever. I feel like there's no Z tier anymore. I feel like there's no C tier. I just think something like this works. Like, at the end of the day, it comes down to just situational things. Sometimes you use some of these cards. Like, I just feel like meta more or less. This is like situational. I can't even type situational. And then this is just like pretty much never. Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, put this here, I guess, like that. We'll just put this in order, honestly. It's just not a specific order per se. Because again, I'm not specifically saying like, oh, this card is definitively better than this card, because it depends on the character you're using. It depends on what you're doing with the character, etc., etc. So, let me know what you guys are thinking. Appreciate y'all for watching. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be showing my own presets right now, and we'll kind of wrap things up there. All right, y'all. So to show you my own presets here, this is a Snowball, Giant Slayer, Defense Step. I think this is used on characters who kind of could just stay back and very safely do damage. For the most part, like let's say Super Saiyan 3 Goku, Kale, Kefla, God Goku. And again, you can notice a lot of these characters just end up doing burst damage. They don't have to really interact in fights. They're able to stay safely back. You know, they're not really at risk of losing snowball stacks or anything like that, so that's why they will end up benefiting from this. I feel like most characters I run will not really end up using this. This is kind of more of a for fun build, but you know, I just think a lot of characters who end up using Prepare to Die want build up, just because I think for the most part, like, they want to stay in a fight for a long time, since they want enemies to last more than 2 seconds. And I think if you're running Snowball, a lot of these characters will just end up wanting to burst them down, but that's just me. Now, we also have Snowball, Barrier, Limit Breaking Jump. This is just like a generalist set. Like, I think it is just like bread and butter. You could also end up using Snowball, Solid Barrier, and then Defense. I actually don't have that set up. Let me actually change this. This was the Krillin build before he was nerfed, but I'll go ahead and put this right here. I think Snowball, Barrier, and Defense Step also just a good build. Like, I sometimes run that in Trunks instead of Backstab, right? So these are the defensive cards setup, which is, again, like I said, a character like Popo, Broly, etc. could end up using these cards, I think, very, very effectively. Super Vegito, like these characters that kind of want to just a little bit of beefiness to stay in fights a little longer. I think this works out for them very well. This is just if you want full defense. You can also switch this out for Barrier, depending on the character. But since Barrier is a pick that I feel like you only will pick Barrier against certain like major like burst damage characters, I end up having it defaulted to Steel Skin, but depends. Here we have build up art Decoy defense step. I think this is the go-to for most of the technicals I play, which is why I have it as a preset here. This is just the Bardock build. I think as tank, I just will pick Bardock. That is how it is. He's just the meta pick right now. Then this is what I talked about earlier, but again, you could also just make this build up barrier defense step, right? Anyways, this is just my own setups based on my own characters that I use, but I think most characters in the game will use some combination of these. Maybe one card or another card switched out, just kind of change them depending on what we talked about in the video, but I hope this helped you guys out. Again, we'll go ahead and show the tier list one last time. Bam, that is the list. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions, and yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.